I mean, I could. Well, she has a question, but she asked for, can I get the woman in the back?
Well, I'm very inspired by what you have said so far. It's very impressive how you've been able to lift yourself out of a really seemingly impossible situation to where you are now. And you certainly have a lot to say about yourself and where you've been and where you think things should head to in the future. I just want to know, what is it that makes you want to actually write, to say something, to communicate? You said it's about connection and not about convincing. What makes you want to connect? What makes you want to open a book to write something so that other people can actually listen to it? Well,
I want to sort of like, I'm not going to say correct, but I want to sort of like qualify something you said. So, like, it's not necessarily that I like lifted myself up into these things. Like, people lifted me up. Right, that's why the story with Nani and those kids, like people like in my family lifted me up, and my community of folks. So it wasn't like Marlon just coming out, like had this, exceptional ability of resilience that he just did this sort of stuff on his own. There are people who are a community of folks who are responsible for me, right? And so that kind of like goes into like why I write, because I understand that I'm responsible to a community of people as well. It's just kind of like I do what I ought to do. The first time I had ever realized that I had not only liked writing, but had I could write relatively well. I was in the 7th grade and I had a teacher. I wrote some homework assignment, and then I was in junior high school, and he was like, "Hey, I want you to join the school newspaper." And I was like, I mean, okay. And I wish I could find it. I can't find it. I used to have that article still. I think things get lost over the years, but I remember writing an article. I remember the article I wrote was like, "Don't be a statistic." And at the time, it was dealing with like HIV and AIDS and safe sex and stuff like that. I don't know what particularly inspired me to write that piece at that time. But kind of like moving forward, when I was inside, I published things, in different places while I was inside as well. And a lot of it didn't have to do with me, right? I interviewed folks. I have an old blog, it still exists. It's called Pens from the Pen. Pens from the Pen. And I have a friend who I call my little sister Sarah that helped me like put that together while I was inside. She would do all this, put the website together, and I would send stuff, and she would put it up on the site. And I have a interview I have up there with 2 people. One guy who had served over 20 some odd years, and he didn't commit the crime, and both of them. And I had an interview with them, and I put it on the website. I had her put it on the website. Ultimately, because I saw something like this was like I saw an atrocity, and I knew I can put some words together on the pen relatively well. So I was like, let me put it out there. It's just because I ought to. And people got different skills, different abilities in different ways they can use their own art. If you experience something, and you have a certain way and a certain skill and ability and a talent, it's sort of like your responsibility to like use it. And it may not be, you don't have to spend every day, like I said, I wrote a travel piece, right? So you don't have to spend every day your life waking moment like advocating on behalf of other folks, but you should be spending some part of it.
I just remembered something I saw on your blog. Weren't you the class valedictorian?
Yeah, at 6th grade, I was a valedictorian, yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm being like your mother bragging, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing about writing, inspiring, but here's also the powerful thing about writing and like also purpose, like why I do it. Just kind of going back to your question. When I was inside, I had, you had access to like Post-its, and I remember writing a Post-it, and I said it to my mother. I said, "Mommy, one day I'm going to make you proud." And she still like has that on her mirror. It's a little pink Post-it in her bedroom. She still has that on her mirror. So I mean, like it's a shout out to my parents always, but like in many cases I do it because I know like they deserve it.
I just wanted to know, do you ever write on a slant to better convey a message that you want told? So maybe it's based on the truth, but not full truth.
I haven't done it in a while, but I used to do that more so inside. I used to write blog It's on that old Pens from the Pen website, where I used to write blogs in the voices of other people. So I wrote a blog at the time. The election was sent McCain and Obama, and I wrote a blog post in the voice of McCain. I wrote a blog post in the voice of Sarah Palin, and a blog post in the voice of President Obama or candidate Obama at that time. And it was like satire, but it was really the point of it was sort of like if they could speak plainly, right? This is how it would sound, and whatnot. So it was obvious. There was some things I pulled from news sources, so it made, said it's like actual things that they said and did, but I definitely expanded on it somewhat. I mean, I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
Pretty much.
I probably should start doing that again more. I'm sure if I started in the words of Trump, it'd be crazy. I don't know if I want to go that deep. Oh, I don't know.
Is there none? We're a little over time, but we can take one more question. Yeah.
So earlier, you were talking about how writing was a refuge for you when you were in prison. And to me, that raises the question of, how do we, create refuge for more people in prison? Maybe writing isn't their thing, but maybe something else is. But in some ways, that is problematic, right? Working to give people refuge in a place where they shouldn't need to seek refuge. So do you think that as a society, we should, focus on opportunities to give individuals space to be expressive within confining systems, or just work on changing the system?
Well, so our people are there, right? So we should be working on finding ways in which they can feel safe. But ultimately, everything that I did in prison was in spite of prison, right? So those spaces are not places designed aesthetically and definitely not culturally for safety and for self-empowerment and betterment of human spirit. They're not those places. So should we be working to tear these things down? No question about it, right? Because they're not good, right? I'm saying as an understatement, but they're not good places. So anything that and there's many folks who are doing wonderful work and amazing work who have spent time in prison, who are still in prison, in jails, but they're doing this in spite of it. You will always have that. Well, there's that one counselor. There was that one person that said that, but that was one amongst hundreds and thousands of other people they interact with on a daily basis. That's not a system. That's an individual who cares, and that's good that we have individuals who cares, but it's not enough to impact the entire system. So more people are being hurt than helped. So we should definitely be thinking to break down these systems. I mean, particularly, honing in the Angela Davis in me, but the conversation about abolishing prisons is a real conversation that we should be having. And it's not just so simple of saying that we need to just close all the prisons tomorrow and today and just let everybody out. That's not what that's saying. That's not what she's saying. But we should be working towards that. Why can't we be working towards that? If you're in a nonprofit organization and you provide some sort of social service, whether it be reentry services or sexual abuse, whatever the service is, our goal should be working ourselves out of business. Ultimately, we want to be working ourselves out of business. And I think that we have the conversation about abolishing prisons, or even the conversation about abolishing police. Why wouldn't we want to live in a community where we didn't need police? Why is that such a crazy idea? It exists in certain places, right? Why wouldn't we want that? And I think so without question, we need to be working on breaking these things down. Because if we're not working think about it. If we're not working to abolish prisons, just think about that. If we're not working to abolish prisons, we're ultimately saying that we are okay with the level of social conditions that we have in our society. These are inevitabilities. And so we shouldn't be doing any work then. If we're not working towards abolishing these things, there's no sense in doing the work.
Powerful advocacy statement. Thank you. Really powerful. Yeah.